Aloha. Happy end of 2019. This is Claire. I'm here sharing my last video of the year. I'm going to look at the movement that we call fetal. It's a folding motion where you get as close to your midline as you can, as folded as you can, and it asks your spine to go into from its most extended place to its most curved place. And this movement brings along your pelvis. So for a lot of us, our pelvis tends to get kind of stuck to our legs, and our head tends to get kind of stuck to our spine. So I'm just going to share a few of the Mobilignment points with you and see how they help us look at this movement. I do have a couple of assistants here. We'll see how that goes. So the first 3 points, the one that kind of represents your whole core or spinal column is the hyoid point. And the hyoid is a little bone that is suspended above your voice box. So it's kind of behind your jaw. And it's a very similar shape, but much smaller and very delicate. So if you just imagine where that is, without trying to feel it, because you can't really feel it, it can reveal a lot of things. And so we're going to look at that point in relationship to the tip of your nose, which is mobile and cartilaginous, and just see, when you look down, is the place where your hyoid point lives allowed to move. In this instance, when you look down, it would kind of shift back. And in relation to the ground, because I'm looking down here, it would kind of shift back and up that way. So they have this mobile relationship to each other. Then you also have the back of your skull. And so if the back of your skull was to slide this way, your hyoid point could kind of release up, and they could be mobile in relationship to each other. That's a possibility. Sometimes what happens is they get crunched together. And then the third movement is turning. And so we turn maybe to hear something or to see something. And sometimes what happens is everything pulls down on that suspended bone, but that doesn't actually have to happen. So if you look in one direction, you can actually let that bone slide and move. So it's a suggestion. See how that works for you. And I think that might be enough information, actually, to use to explore this folded movement. But just to tie it in, we've been talking about how the limbs as well as the torso rotate. So you can see how that plays out in this movement I'm going to show you. So I've got a blanket here because it's you don't want to have your knees on a hard floor. Maybe you have a rug. And I've got this prop in case you have super tight hips or any kind of issue with hip flexion. You might have had an old injury like me, or maybe you've got some issues with your lumbar. And so we are really not attempting to have a deep fold here. We're actually, if you allow the nose point to go forward and the hyoid point to go back, your hip joint will actually open in the front. And so you'll see how that plays out here. It can do all kinds of things, but we're just exploring its full range. So your hands are under your shoulders. Your knees are maybe the same width. And for this one, we're going to cross one foot over the other. And even in this shape, you want to have a little bit of freedom to go forward and back, and left and right. Before you go any deeper, you want to make sure you have all of those choices. So you're going to look down and let your hyoid slide back and up as your knees go forward and fold. And then you're going to look. And as I do that, I notice I start to push from my lower back and tighten in my shoulders a little bit. So I'm just going to let my fingertips really wrap around my shoulders. And it's almost like I'm thinking of sending my own shoulder that way as I look. My arms are rotating out, and my legs, which were rotated out, actually kind of rotate in a little bit. And it's great to take a moment to watch how your body, which is really different than my body, unwinds here. It may kind of continue to unwind as you lie down on the floor. So I hope that this movement helps you really open the back body and soften the front body. We get so jacked up in our back, and I need to do this kind of almost every day. If you have tight hips or knees, cranky knees, you don't have to cross your feet, and you can also put this bolster here so that you're really not feeling any pain in your hip joints. And it might take some time to figure out, if you don't even do the roll, you just want to have as much of your forearm resting on the floor as you can so that you give up holding your shoulders up. All right, peace and love. Let's take really good care of ourselves. It's important to do that because it makes all the people who love you really happy when you take care of yourself. And I hope that this work is helpful in making that a profoundly physical, embodied thing. All right, peace and love. Let's make it a better year next year.